Hello, good afternoon, good morning, everybody. Welcome to our next installment of our digital panels. It's a monthly event that takes place here on Music Industry City. Each month, we focus on a specific topic that we feel is worthwhile, let's say. And obviously, it's coming up to festival season. I'm sure everybody in the audience has at least one ticket to go see some of your favorite artists and visit some of your favorite festivals this summer. With that, we were thinking about let's focus a little bit on the subtleties of what's happening in the live touring industry post-pandemic. Lots of things have been happening. Obviously, live is back with a bang. But what we'd like to focus on slightly is some of the real talk from the people who are in the trenches of the live touring industry. We've got a great panel put together. We've got some representatives who are deep in the trenches of touring and fan management, and we'll get their views on what's been changing with regards to sustainability, mental health, everything that's going around touring post-pandemic and post-Brexit. We also have representation from a hybridization platform. One of the buzzwords to come out of the pandemic world, I think, is hybridization, how artists can now either go fully live or in a hybrid digital live. We'll get some views on that, and also looking at some new tech platforms that are helping artists get booked, for example, through a kind of fan-driven booking technology that we'll also have representation from. And all this will be beautifully put together by our lovely moderator, who is a veteran from the PR and live industry. It's Miss Nikki McNeil. Nikki, you're there?
Hi there. Thanks for the lovely intro there, Niall.
Not a problem. With that, guys, I will pass you over. I'll be back again for some words after the event, but I'm going to pass it over to Nikki and we can start to get going.
We will get going. Yeah, thanks for that amazing introduction. Really honoured to be here. We've got a great panel of speakers for you here. So I'm Nikki. I run a PR company called Global Publicity, and I basically specialise in doing PR for events and festivals. So let's get each of our panellists to give a quick intro who they are. Andy, let's start with you.
Hi, my name is Andy Ingalls, and I am an artist manager and tour manager.
Perfect. And over to you, Ara.
Hi, Nikki. My name's Ara. I'm the CEO of Soundstage, a virtual concerts platform.
Perfect. And Jenny, last but not least. Oh, we have a sound issue. Can everyone hear Jenny?
Oh, yeah, classic. Okay, well, it was actually just my mute button. So my name is Jenny. I'm the founder of Tourly, which is a fan demand-driven global touring platform.
Brilliant. So let's get started then. So I thought it'd be really nice to give a little bit of background into the kind of sectors of the industry we're from and where we're all at. So maybe I thought it'd be good for you to kind of give a brief summary of where each of you were pre-pandemic and kind of where you've ended up now and where things are at for you now. So I thought we'd start with Jenny on this one.
Okay, sure. I was pre-pandemic. Where was I? I was in LA actually pre-pandemic. But generally speaking, we were already planning our touring platform. So we were one of those startups that got caught in the pandemic, so to speak, right? Obviously, we were supposed to launch actually March 2020, and eventually had to obviously push back now by 2 years. But yeah, so I was somewhat doing the same thing I'm doing now, to be fair. But obviously the way we've laid out the platform has changed over the pandemic. But yeah.
So do you think the pandemic has accelerated the kind of drive to doing what you're doing now?
I believe so, because one thing that I think if you're in the music industry, you know that the music industry does not like change. Right, but to the outside, it always looks like the music industry is so innovative and so, up for innovation and technology. And I feel like that would now that has over the pandemic. I believe that there's a lot more opportunity, or let's say, we've gotten so shook that whatever we used to do before, the way we were handling things before, they have been so much changed over the years that, or over the pandemic, that I believe that so much more opportunity is coming up for innovation. I'm sure, I mean, Ara, I haven't met you before, but I would imagine in your business that must have been a dramatic change. People, what they're up for, technologically speaking, what they were up for pre-pandemic, and what they're going to be up for now. I feel like definitely innovation has been sparked, and things that were not taken into consideration by management teams prior to the pandemic and kind of written off as like this virtual digital stuff, that is now obviously has saved everybody, right? I guess over the last 2 years in a way. So yeah, I'm definitely seeing there being more openness to look at the industry differently and to do things differently, and that's definitely an advantage.
Brilliant, thank you. And that's why I love doing these conversations, because you're always learning from other people and seeing what's going on in different aspects of the industry. Now, I'm going to go to Andy next, because I'm like him. I'm much more live. I don't deal with so much digital. So I presume we've kind of had some similar experiences there. So let's go completely the other end of the spectrum to someone who mainly works in kind of live and not digital.
Not a lot has changed really. Before the pandemic, I was touring and managing from the road, and now the pandemic is inverted commas over. I continue to tour and manage from the road, and I don't see much difference in touring really. It's still utterly crushing, and it's still massively environmentally damaging. There's not a whole lot that can be done about that. I don't think in any seriously appreciable way, but I'm very open to. And me and my artists, we do the best we can. But when you've had 3 hours sleep, you just want to go to bed and not take the recycling out. So I think for me, my artists, we have to fundamentally change what touring is for us. I'm actually on a tour right now, only it collapsed because the artist got laryngitis. So we're all waiting in Cardiff now to see if he can do the London show at the Barbican on Monday. We don't know yet. And that's because we all pushed the whole thing too hard. We came out of COVID and went, let's get at it. I mean, Niall said the phrase before, in the trenches. You wouldn't hear that phrase in any other art form. You wouldn't refer to people working in opera or classical or ballet or cinema as being in the trenches, but we're contemporary music. It came from rock and roll, this outsider art. And we have this mentality, which is, we can just get it done. We'll just get on with it, and we'll build a festival in a week. Let's not do that. Let's instead go to bed. Let's not do the Cornwall drive. Let's just not bother. Let's go read a book and talk to the birds in the park. And that's what I'm at now. I'm kind of done with this rock and roll mentality, and I've seen it kill people. And I don't want that to happen to my artists. So we're trying to tour in a very nice way for us, and hopefully by doing that, driving less diesel, therefore better for the environment. We'll see if that comes to pass.
It's interesting you say that, because I think I've been on a lot of conversations and Zoom calls during the pandemic with industry professionals talking about how there should be a big reset, how we need to rethink things, how we can't keep working at these levels. But clearly from what you're saying, you are back at those levels. It's trying to make up for lost time and just go harder even. Yeah,
it hasn't changed. No one's talking about it around me except me that I can hear. And people, we all want it to happen. We all want to have, we all talk, I suppose, to your family saying, I'm shattered. I want a quieter life. Then we go back on tour and just go at it again. And I'm done with it. I'm 49. My band who are half my age are also done with it. And but there will not be any systematic change. I just don't see it happening.
Well, hopefully these conversations, some people are listening and we can inspire some change. I guess we just got to keep trying, haven't we? Yeah. I'm sure we'll get onto some of the mental health impacts and things a bit later in the conversation. So, Ara, let's come to you.
I think I see an interesting sort of thread here across all three of us, which is actually kind of what's happened across the industry, right? Which is that everybody's been shifting gears for the last 3 years. And everything feels like it's constantly being turned on its head, where we're chasing a moving target, and our business models are constantly in flux because of this evolving situation, this rapidly evolving and changing industry. And, you know, even for those of us, I think, in sort of the virtual sphere, speaking for Soundstage here, we were completely caught off guard. And so what we set out to do pre-pandemic versus where we've ended up, I mean, even though they're both virtual space, virtual technology, virtual paradigms for musical performances, completely different. And it was incredibly challenging because where we were originally operating in kind of, I would say, at the forefront of these new technologies in sort of a virgin landscape where there weren't that many other players trying to experiment, like, you know, with live streams or what have you, we quickly found ourselves in basically red waters. You know, it was like a Shark Tank with all these other actors that many of which were not really digitally native. All of these brands that had to find their digital their digital outlet because they'd been cut off from the physical world. And of course that had a huge impact, I think, not just on, you know, our own ability to sort of separate ourselves from the pack and make our brand known and share our vision with the world, but it actually, I think it ended up saturating consumers, you know, music fans, and it ended up saturating artists as well. It ended up saturating the entire space with so many sort of, the live streams come to mind, right? Obviously, we all lived through that live stream explosion where everybody was so excited about, oh wow, well, yeah, this is going to push the industry towards this innovation, and now we can do live streams, and these are great because they're good for the environment, and they're more sustainable, and they're good for mental health because artists don't have to be touring all of the time. And you know, with so much content flooding the internet of variable quality and just an oversaturation in general, I think a lot of mistakes were made. But you know, like Jenny rightfully points out, there was and continues to be now this culture of experimentation, of, you know, where it's like we need to question the previous modus operandi of the entire industry because our survival is at stake, and our survival could be, you know, put at risk from one day to the next, just like it happened. So it was, I think, a great wake up call for everybody, and it's strangely, it's led to this flourishing of all of these cool, new, amazing marketing tools. You know, the whole NFT space, the metaverse, all of these really, really cool things, which I think we're still trying to, you know, figure out where all of these pieces fit. But it's definitely turning into a fun journey, I think, for everybody. And there's a general sense of excitement around where all of this is going. So we're there, and yeah, I'll fill you in later on exactly where we've ended up during this time.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's really good that you mentioned streaming, because I think it was a great outlet for some artists, particularly the electronic music artists. They took to it, you know, immediately, these new technologies, and they're often early adopters, aren't they? So they were streaming away, and also they kind of built communities, because you may have seen things like Beatport and the Association of Electronic Music doing fundraising streams, and also the birth of United We Stream, which started in Berlin, where these kind of communities were popping up, fundraising, supporting each other. So they kind of also served a purpose of connecting people, you know, maintaining communities in the industry, which I also think is important. But then obviously stream fatigue has come in, and then I think artists realized they were giving away content for free, and then people were expecting it, and then how could they monetize it? So I think that kind of came into as an issue. Now, Niall in the intro talked about hybridization, so I suppose that kind of leads nicely onto our kind of next question. I'm going to go to Andy on this one, because I'm just wondering, have any of your artists done any of these hybrid kind of events yet, where they've put content online or special kind of VIP fan content, you know, alongside their live offering?
No, and I wish they would, if only because we can then pay the band and crew quite a lot of money for not doing a whole lot of work. And they suffered quite a lot during the pandemic, of course, because they couldn't tour. I've been waiting. I've looked at so many different actors who offer streaming various versions of live performance, and I'm kind of been watching a lot of them and going, I'm going to wait a bit longer and then say to my artist, right, this one looks, here's how it can be done. Let's talk to that company and try and get them interested that way. But at the moment, I don't have an artist who is particularly interested in performing to a camera. I think I might, given how hard this tour's been that I'm currently on, I've now got a better chance of convincing him that this is worth looking at again, that we can do it more comfortably. And also, no matter how many shows we do, most people in the world will never see Ed Sheeran play because time is finite and space is finite, and he can't get to every city, and people can't visit that place to watch him play. So I want to play for our huge Indonesian audience who we just can't get to them because we can't get a promoter to book us. So I'm really keen to do it.
We can talk about that later.
You'll get you a gig. I mean, Nick Cave did that amazing show at the Royal Albert Hall, which was paid for online, and that seemed to be a huge success. So Ara, you seem to be, diving deep into all these technologies. Do you have any examples you could share of artists who've managed to get it right with the hybrid and the live situation?
Well, it really depends, I think, on the demographic, the target market, right? Because every especially nowadays, like every Generation Y, Generation Z, millennials, we all kind of have our different preferences, our preferred mediums, and our preferred way to experience live music. There's the Minecraft generation. They play video games so much that if you do something in Minecraft, that's great for them, but you're going to probably struggle with millennials who prefer something more human, more social, and I think one of what Andy was pointing out is that it's hard to sell artists on this as well, right? Because for artists, hybrid events don't often come with very many guarantees in terms of monetization. They're kind of a shot in the dark. You don't know what's going to work, and I think artists have to be genuinely excited to want to experiment. And one of the things that I think a lot of hybrid events lack is interaction. We call them hybrid, but if you tell me, okay, we've got a live stream of an artist and you can talk in a chat box, I think we're just watching an artist play music, but there's no actual interaction, right? And so when there's no actual interaction, I think it doesn't do it justice to call it hybrid. I think if you don't have true interaction to some extent, where the artist feels like they've got an audience in front of them that's responding and reacting, however it is, okay? But it needs to be somewhat meaningful, and it needs to feel authentic. The artists aren't going to be excited to engage in that, to experiment with it, and their and their heart really won't be in it. And on the receiving end of that, I think that a lot of that magic is lost. One of the things that that Soundstage set out to do early on, and this was our first product, or our first technology really, we called it the private virtual performance, where just like we're doing now, where we're talking with each other, I'm an artist, I could be in my home studio with my DJ gear, and I could be projected on your wall in your living room, and it's your birthday or something, you've got some friends over, and so now you can book me, and I could be one of those festival artists that tours like a big name, or I could just be an emerging artist that you're a real fan of. You really, really like me, and of course I never make it out to your neck of the woods, so rather than wait for that day to come, you can actually book me for a private performance, and I get projected on your wall, and I get to see into your private space, into your living room, into your backyard, whatever. You're there with all your friends, and we can interact and talk with each other, and I'm going to play some awesome music, and I'm going to watch everybody dance and react. And as I'm tweaking, slamming from one song to the next, I see everybody go crazy, and I can do shout outs. And to me, that's true hybrid, right? It's like you've got the full interaction, and not only that, on the other end of it, you actually have a group of human beings that are together, because at the end of the day, what's more special than actually sharing the moment physically with friends? And so to me, that's true hybrid. And it's what we set out to do originally. But unfortunately, as soon as we were kind of, we had the initial momentum going, we'd done a number of events, the pandemic hit, everything got shut down. All of these restrictions, no gatherings anymore. And so we had to pivot and reinvent ourselves, not knowing how long it might be until we can, get back to the original vision.
That's so interesting, everything you've said there. And it kind of reminds me about the Tomorrowland Around the World event. I don't know if any of you are aware of that. They were kind of probably one of the first metaverse style events before the word metaverse was kind of being used everywhere. And they were encouraging friends to buy the special Tomorrowland at Home pack. And as long as you were following COVID restrictions in the countries you're allowed in, to have a party at home while you're immersed in the world, enjoying the world. So you could still have your Tomorrowland flag and your champagne and whatever, and your clothing at home, and be then taking pictures of yourself enjoying it at home. So that's a kind of concept.
Book your own tables, book your own bottles.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, they really went all out on it. So Jenny, I'd love to
section. Yes, exactly.
I know. I'd love to bring in you now, Jenny, because I know you've been working on this new fan kind of demand-driven kind of global touring platform. Now, this sounds hybrid-y. It sounds definitely forward-thinking. I'd love to know more about how this fits into our post-pandemic touring world.
Sure. Well, I mean, obviously, with the pandemic kind of knocking out 2 years of touring. I mean, not entirely 2 years, but at least a good year and a half, I think, was knocked out. And for most of the world, more than 2 years in terms of not being able to get international bookings in. So yeah, I spent a lot of time living and working in underserved markets when it comes to concerts. So I spent a lot of time in Africa. I spent about 14 years in Africa, in Nigeria and South Africa. I also lived in Hong Kong, which surprisingly also doesn't get any concerts, even though it is considered a very highly developed market, and yet nobody ever passes by. So the idea of a fan demand-driven touring platform really is about getting the fan involved in the process and saying like, hey, where are the fans at, and where are the fans at, and give opportunity to artist teams to take that into consideration. So I was in artist management for 6 years myself, and I was very lucky to manage an artist that had a super crazy fan base in South Africa, still does, to be fair. And I was planning a tour for him at the time, and we did the whole classic thing of putting the Instagram Instagram post, where do you want to see me? And then I was sitting there as a manager with 3,500 comments. I'm Andy, maybe you're aware of that as well, as a manager sitting there and like trying to now figure out, where do people want to see the artists, and with an Excel sheet and like crossing off the cities. And basically, the idea really is about making that more accessible, because nobody's got that time. My artist was really small. 3,500 comments is not much. There are artists that get 400, 500, 1 million comments under an image. And the idea is really to like just channel it more. And I think in a post-pandemic world, the idea of taking the fan more into consideration, considering that the fan was ever the more important during the pandemic to even make to keep artists going, because it was so the ecosystem really had to support each other. There was a whole lot of, oh, I hope my fans are going to tag along for that. Oh, I hope they're going to come on the virtual platforms. I hope they're going to go and buy merch. There's I felt like the connection between artist and fan got a lot stronger during the pandemic. There was a bit more. There was just a stronger connection during the pandemic, and that gave the fan also an opportunity to, in a way, just generally they would want to be more involved in things like touring. And we're, with Tourly, we're making that possible now, providing real-time data to artist teams, but also to promoters and venues about where the demand is coming from, so that things can be planned better. Funnily enough, it also works nicely for a hybrid model, because you can look at it from like, where are your fans across the different time zones? So if you were doing something in a live scenario, in a live stream scenario, you could say, this is something that I hope artist teams will start taking into consideration. I spent most of the pandemic in Hong Kong, and everything that was going on virtual was always like 5 o'clock in the morning for me, or 8 o'clock in the morning, and who wants to go to a concert at 8 a.m. So I do hope that is taken into consideration going forward when hybrid events are taking off more, to see where the fans are located across the time zones as well.
Does your platform also ask the fans kind of what content they want? Because it was interesting that Ara was talking about, the different kind of more inclusive show where it's a small amount of fans, an acoustic set and some interaction, or could there be meet and greets that are virtual or different things? So is the kind of content they want considered? Are you aware of that?
As of now, what we're focusing on is the geographic location. So it is about the fan being able to take initiative and say, hey, I want to bring this artist here. And then it works somewhat like a petition to get other people on board and bring the numbers up, and then prove local demand. Whereas on the other side, on the artist side, it's more about saying, hey, these are the cities I'm thinking about going to. Where do you guys want to see me? And then having the fans key in. But I think over time, there's definitely other features that we're working on that have to do with fans giving more specific feedback for things. However, it is also, I also, having worked with artists for a long time, I also realized that some artists really like having a lot of feedback. Some artists feel like it starts interfering with the art form. So it really depends on who we're working with. But yeah, there will definitely be features in the future that have to do with that. But for now, it's mainly about geographic location.
Sounds really interesting. Andy, you might end up going to different cities you've never played in before because there's finally demand.
Well, maybe we can help you make the Indonesia gig happen.
We know where the audiences are. It's more about that we need. Well, I guess guarantees. I'm not going to start boring people about this stuff, but sure, if the audience can say we want you to come and there's the money, then okay. But if they say we want you to come, then they don't buy tickets, then we're like 50 grand in the hole. That can be problematic.
Of course.
But it's very interesting. We've got a very close fan base, and every time we post anything on Instagram, 80% of the comments are caps lock, come to Indonesia.
Okay.
So it's the third biggest market in the world, and we can't get there.
So which artist is this regarding? I missed that.
They're called Novo Amor.
Okay.
It's a Welsh artist, but we happen to have a big fan base.
Really? A Welsh artist has a massive fan base in Indonesia. Wow.
Yeah, we don't do very well. We don't do very well in Wales, but that's fine because it doesn't really matter. A market's a market, so we're happy to be popular where we're popular.
Amazing.
That's true. I don't think you need to worry about all the usual markets anymore, do you? You can have a successful career just being in France or, China or touring other countries. So, yeah, I think that and Jenny's tool could help you do more of that.
That'd be nice. Get me out of the UK as fast as I can. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Brexit.
Oh dear. Now, conscious of time, but there's so much we could be talking about. So I want to get stuck into the kind of more digital opportunities that Ara kind of briefly mentioned earlier. We can't talk about post-pandemic stuff without talking about blockchain, NFTs, the metaverse, kind of all these things. And maybe some of you saw David Guetta perform. I think he was the first kind of avatar DJ set. Was it Sandbox or Roblox? I can't remember which one. Roblox, yeah. So, as I said before, a lot of the electronic artists are early adopters of things kind of leading the way. But then obviously you've got the hip hop scene with, Travis Scott in Fortnite. So there's a lot of opportunities there. So, Ara, let's get you to answer this one. So where's this going? What are people doing?
I've been a huge fan of the virtual concert stuff, specifically Fortnite. Roblox is following along those lines. I think it was 2019 when Marshmello did his big Fortnite concert, and I was blown away by it because I think anybody could see the potential of that initial experiment. And where things are now headed, seems to line up with with everything else that's happening, it's interesting because like there's this convergence of all this technology that's all coalescing, and ultimately what I think where all of this I think is headed is giving artists agency, giving artists ownership over their communities, ownership over the mediums through which they engage, and making their fans stakeholders in their brands. And I think that that's so incredibly powerful. And really that's what blockchain is all about. That's what these NFTs, that we're so excited about, that's what they're all about. And of course, they have all these different dimensions to them that can be explored and experimented with and monetized. And, we constantly hear of new NFT drops with different attributes, and maybe an NFT gives you it gives you royalties. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Diplo's releasing some stuff now. I forgot the platform, but Diplo's releasing some NFTs now that will basically make artists receive royalties from streams to the songs that he releases. That's incredibly powerful. Of course, it's powerful for Diplo, but it's especially powerful for the emerging artists that typically, they have fans, communities of fans that are rabid about them, but they've never actually been able to make them direct stakeholders in the venture, so to speak. And so now with this rise of the fandom, I think that, we have all the ingredients for this sort of technological music renaissance that hasn't ever existed before, where basically artists will be able to take control over so much of their brand, so much of their community, and decide where they want to go, sort of free of the traditional constraints of the industry, where you have to sort of I guess maybe meet the expectations of your label or your or the rest of your artist management team, because you've got all these contracts in place and things are expected of you. Now artists are kind of free to plot their own journey, but at the same time, maybe even make it compatible with lifestyles that previously were a lot harder to sustain, especially before the pandemic, right? We talk about the mental health, where, I remember there being this huge conversation at the time about mental health and artists being exhausted from touring, kind of the same thing that Andy's mentioning now, as he's just getting right back to it. And I think that the way out of that is really through all of these new mediums, and by giving artists agency so that they can, they don't have to depend so desperately on that touring income. And so that's what all these technologies are about. And I think that this next year we're going to see the promise start to come to life, because I think this last year was a lot of theory. There was all of these sort of visionaries selling us on the vision, but the building blocks weren't there, and people didn't really know how to use them. But I think the signals now are showing that, okay, these products, these technologies, they have legs, and we now have somewhat of a good sense on how to use them. And I think we're going to start to actually see that come to life in 2022.
Yeah, I think you mentioned so many good points there, particularly the Diplo example, because I think lots of people saw NFTs and just millionaires buying them for silly amounts of money, and everyone was kind of saying, well, that's great, but how can small bands use them? How can everyday artists use them to their benefit? So the idea of using them for royalties or different things is amazing. So I really hope to see more developments on that. And I also loved what you said about artists finding new ways of making money on their own, and kind of ties in with a lot of talk on the phrase, the new creative economy. I don't know if any of you have heard, where, artists or influencers or communities are kind of building their own communities and fundraising themselves using things like Patreon and other ways. So they're doing this DIY style of doing things. And I guess all these new technologies are enabling people to, be more, do things their own way and in a new way.
They have, I mean, they have incredible tools at their disposal, right? Whether we're talking about sort of actual tools for monetization, like Patreon and tools of that sort, or like your sort of Discord, which Discord in itself has proven to be this incredibly powerful tool to gather your fans and make them feel like, hey, you're constantly in touch, right? Like we're just chatting we're chatting in our general chat room all week long, casual conversations, and all of that is so compatible with an artist's lifestyle too, because it's like you could be on a train just touring, and at the same time you've got Discord on your phone and you're chatting with your community and keeping them in the loop, and it feels organic, it feels human. All of these mediums and tools, they're incredibly powerful. Of course, when it comes to sort of the NFT thing and the blockchain thing, there is, I think, a need to also be hypercritical with ourselves and measure our enthusiasm and sometimes even curb it, because I think the industry's made a few mistakes in the past. Live streaming, I think, was the perfect example where sentiment was high and like live stream's gonna save the day, but and then we used it naively, right? And so I think all of these technologies are very promising, but it's important to sort of filter out the noise and make sure that we are being sort of doing our due diligence in understanding what the value proposition is, what makes the consumer tick, and not just trying to hop onto it because it's a trend or because it's a hot concept. Rather, like we actually understand how to apply it and how to leverage. And it's not necessarily meant to be used prescriptively for every artist, because every genre has its own culture. Every artist has his or her own sort of target demographic, and the consumer preference will vary so much based on all of that. So I think it's important to just keep that in mind as the industry moves into this new space.
Yes, so much opportunity there. I mean, Andy, how would your artists feel about being on their phones all day, talking in communities and stuff while they're on the tour bus?
They wouldn't like it. But many artists would, and that's great for them. And there is a version of what we're talking about here that would work for my artist. So yeah, I'm very interested in technology and how it can help, but I'm also interested in switching it off and not. I've got this thing where Salt Lake City, for some reason, keeps appearing as the third top city in America for us. Actually, top 5 in the world for us, for my band, and we don't know why. And every time I think about learning why and leveraging it to make more money, I just phone a friend instead and tell them that I love them, or I go for a walk in the park, and I refuse to leverage that data point. I don't care about. It's more important to me that I go for a walk, or I'm trying to find a balance between using these digital tools and leveraging the audience and monetizing, and also making sure that we all go to bed at a reasonable hour. And we don't need to make. I mean, I'm not speaking for the band and crew, but me and my artists don't need to make more money. We're fine. So I've got to bear that in mind too. Instead of like doing another show, let's just have a day off. It'll cost money, but that's okay as well. So, but I mentioned, he's very slow to pick up technology, but he does. He finds a way to do it that's healthy for him, and that's all that matters to me. Let's use Discord if you can do it in a healthy way. Let's do a hybrid performance if we can do it in a healthy way where you feel like you're protected. If I can do that, I'm all for this stuff. It sounds fascinating to me.
That's a really good point there as well. And lots of artists often get advice to try and be on every planner. You've got to be, channel, you've got to be everywhere. But I think, you have to pick the right one for you. Mm-hmm. Ones do you feel you can continue and maintain? So I think that's also an issue. And particularly, as Andy's saying, with your mental health, you can't be on there all the time. Some people are really good at it and want to have those conversations. Some people are great at videos. Some people are good at words. So some people might be better at Twitter. Some people might be better on TikTok. So I guess it's just finding the right balance. I think balance seems to be the word of the day, actually. Finding the right balance. What's right for you? What can you cope with? What's right and what's right for each artist. I guess everybody's different, right?
Yeah, indeed.
So I think we've only got about 3 minutes left, I think. So I'm guessing we should kind of sum up in some way. I mean, I've got so many other questions we haven't asked about, the touring landscape, small grassroots venues. We've lost lots of those because of their rent arrears and the pandemic, and they're very important for new emerging artists. Obviously, the festival landscape, there's so much more we could talk about. So I guess we should probably get some closing comments from each of our amazing guests on where they think that things are going to be heading this year and beyond. Jenny, let's go to you.
Well, I would say touring-wise, what I see what I foresee is that touring might end up becoming more real-time, shorter periods. That you announce something today, and because the market is now open, certain markets are open, boom, you take the opportunity, you go, rather than what we were doing before with like 6 months on sale, and when the world was in order. So I do see it becoming more shorter in terms of time horizon. That's something that I can foresee. And yeah, overall, it's going to be very interesting to see how the hybrid takes off. I think I believe that there's a great opportunity there, especially for the underserved markets, for a lot of people that are not able to attend concerts, but I don't feel like it is made for them at this time. There are, especially when we're looking at ticketed live stream experiences, most of them are still ticketed in for the American market, for the European market. They're very, high in price. Whereas what we could be seeing right now is geofencing and saying that, okay, cool, we're doing, this is now, it's a live stream, and somebody who tunes in from South Africa does not pay the same amount as somebody who tunes in from the US. And we're not really seeing that yet. And I feel like that is a massive loss, considering that we are looking at a global, like we're trying to use the hybrid for the whole argument of, the whole world can engage with it now, but then we're still charging $25 and are expecting, the underserved markets to be able to deal with that, which is, exchange rate wise, it's not possible. And purchasing power wise, it is also often not possible. And I feel like we're really losing out a lot there. And that is something that if that can be taken into consideration, then I believe that hybrid has a huge potential globally to really be taking off. That is a point that I would make. Other than that, yeah, I mean, we're going, it seems like, I mean, what Andy is saying, everything is as it used to be before. That is, I guess, I don't know, in some cases that's good, in some cases that's not good. He was mentioning that he wanted some changes to happen that are not really translating right now. Certain things, I do believe that there's a certain element of, oh my God, we lost 2 years, let's catch up. So I'm hoping that over the next year or so, as everybody gets back on the road, maybe changes will start happening after all. But yeah, overall, I mean, I'm very positive on touring. Fans are dying to get back into the live space around the world, and I just hope that we can accommodate that.
Love that there's lots of positives there. Andy, your thoughts?
I don't know. I've got plenty of hope. I can't influence what happens in the world. I can just look at our audience and react to them, and they want us to be there physically. So we will do that in a way that's healthy for us, and we'll try and take care of each other when we're doing it, and try and make sure we're all well rested and well paid. And and when technology is useful to us, we will use it. I haven't got anything more pithy to say than that. I'm sorry. We're also out of time, so I'll stop talking.
That's all right. Well, hopefully we'll see your band taking advantage of some of these innovations very soon.
I'd like that.
You can take notes and go and tell them straight after. There you go. I've been taking notes too. That's why these conversations are so great, especially talking to different people from different corners of the world as well, learning about what's going on there. So Ara, let's finish with you.
Sure. Well, I struggle with predictions when it comes to live touring, basically because it's not my wheelhouse. But based on kind of what I see in the broader industry, I actually share Jenny's sentiment here, which is that we're going to see faster faster cycles in terms of shorter cycles in terms of event announcements and tours and those sort of like the sort of real time, a more rapid real time gauging of where the market is and moving to service it, because I think part of that is just the fact that we have seen our world change so quickly so many times over the last year that that's become the new modus operandi, right? It's like, we know we can act now, so we need to act now. We need to move fast because we don't know, we can't plan an event for 3 months out or 6 months out the way that we could before. And so I think, if I had to guess, that's probably going to happen a lot moving forward.
Perfect. So much great information there. And I think that's going to close our chat today. So thanks to everyone for joining us. I hope we gave you some good information or answered some questions about post-life pandemic touring that you may have had. And maybe we'll catch up with you somewhere offline after this.
It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Nikki, for bringing that together. That was awesome. One thing that really resonated with me was obviously from Andy saying that he's done with the rock and roll mentality, which is kind of rips my heart, but at the same time, I would like to put it out there to everyone who's going to be front and center of any festival and, I don't know, throwing beer or sexy underwear at your favorite artist. Why not bring a big fluffy pillow and just throw it at them then and see what reaction you get there. Let's keep in mind the artists and everything around them, and the whole production that makes these things tick along. That it's not all glory, let's say, But with that, thanks so much, Andy. Lovely to see you again, Jenny and Ara. Awesome panel. I think I will wrap things up. As I said, this is the Music Industry City. We do these talks every month. Next one will be obviously coming up the next month in June. We're sorry for not having a kind of an interactive talk, but with that, get yourselves over to Music Industry City, register yourself. You can put all of your, any thoughts you have on this, any kind of content you'd like to share. Get on there. There's a community, a very active community. That's always kind of, it's always a good place to put your thoughts down there. So if you want to follow up on this, please do that. Plug time. It's the Future Music Forum. We're coming around again, finally, last week in September, 26th to the 30th. It's going to be an awesome week. We're waiting for you in Barcelona. We've got a lovely reel that we show every time we finish off one of these digital events. Peter, do you have that? Just to give you a taste of what's coming this year.